Hello, welcome to this video on tips for reducing adjective clauses. In the words of the famous designer Coco Chanel, always remove, always strip away, never add. This quote reminds us that in fashion, as in writing, for good style, we may need to simplify. Today, we'll focus on one way to do that in your writing, the use of adjective clause reduction. You see these reductions often in reading, and it's good for you to control them accurately in your own writing. Let's start by looking at a sentence from a sociology textbook with several examples of adjective clauses. As you know, adjective clauses are often used to give definitions for the important terms of a field, and that's how they're used here. Functionalism, also called structural functional theory, sees society as a structure with interrelated parts designed to meet the biological and social needs of the individuals making up that society. If the sentence had no reductions in its adjective clauses, it would read like this. Functionalism, which is also called structural functional theory, sees society as a structure which has interrelated parts that are designed to meet the biological and social needs of the individuals who make up that society. If I highlight the adjective clauses, you can see how much of the sentence they actually make up. I can pick out 4 adjective clauses in this sentence. Both sentences are technically grammatically correct, so why is reduction of the adjective clauses important? As we said in the introduction, simplifying can create better style. Most people would agree that the sentence as originally written, with reductions, reads a little more smoothly and efficiently. It's a little more concise, less wordy. It's more efficient for the reader to process, and it is a matter of style. You'll remember from study of the 2 basic adjective clause types, subject focus and object focus, that object relative pronouns can be omitted. The type of reduction we're focusing on here, then, is that found in subject focus adjective clauses. So, using some relatively simple sentence examples, here are the basic rules of reduction that you've probably learned in some class you've had in the past, and there are 2 basic rules. If the clause contains a subject relative pronoun and a form of the word be, then remove the relative pronoun who, that, or which, and the form of be. In this example, the students who were taking Dr. Mitchell's course passed the exam can be reduced to the students taking Dr. Mitchell's course passed the exam. The second basic rule is that if the clause contains the subject pronoun and a form of a verb other than be, you remove the subject pronoun and change the verb to ing form. So in this example, anyone who registers late will have to pay a late fee. The change would be anyone registering late will have to pay a late fee. Going back to the original example again, there are 3 cases that follow the first rule, remove the relative pronoun in the form of be, and 1 case, the last one, that follows the second rule, remove the relative pronoun and change the verb to ing form. You may have also noticed that the original example included both essential or restrictive and non-essential or non-restrictive adjective clause types, and the non-essential ones are the ones with the commas. You can review the difference between these clause types in a previous video, but when considering reduction, just know that both types of clauses can be reduced. And let's add a little more detail to that explanation. The next 2 slides show some examples of reduced essential clauses. Notice what structures are left after you make the reduction. You may want to pause the video to look over this list. I'll read the first example here with you. All the students who were taking Professor G's course passed the exam. All the students taking Professor G's course passed the exam. In this example, after making the reduction, you'll be left with a present participle taking immediately following the noun that it modifies. And now you could pause and take a look at the other examples here. And again, this slide continues with more examples of reduced essential clauses. Here's some examples of reduced non-essential clauses. And notice again what structures are left after making the reduction. Non-essential clauses will always contain commas even after the reduction. The reduced phrase may be moved to the beginning of the sentence where it looks and means the same as an adverb clause. Reduced non-essential clauses may only be used to modify the subject of the main clause in the sentence, except for the last type, appositives, which may modify nouns in other positions. Again, you can pause to read through these two slides of examples. Here I'll mention a couple of types of clauses that cannot be reduced. The first is clauses that contain prepositions, such as this example. The journal in which the research was published is well known throughout the world. Because of the preposition in, there's no reduction possible. Another type is clauses with modals, such as this one. Several students who can understand this material will tutor others. Because of the modal can, there's no reduction here. Next, let's look at a couple of common errors that writers make. In the first one, the adjective clause is not correctly placed after the noun that it modifies. The subjects completed a survey randomly selected for the study. This is wrong because randomly selected for the study should modify subjects, not survey. To correct it, the subjects randomly selected for the study completed a survey. In the second error, the writer has made an incomplete reduction by removing the relative pronoun, but not the be form is, resulting in two competing main verbs. It looks like this. The researcher is conducting this study is affiliated with a large university. To correct it, you can put the researcher conducting this study is affiliated with a large university. Okay, now you can test yourself by making reductions where possible in these sentences and then checking them with the answer key in the following slide. And here are the answers. Be sure to review any of the previous videos about adjective clauses if you need further review of their basic structures and usage. And when you edit your own writing, think about Coco Chanel's advice. Just as you would take off one accessory before you leave the house for good fashion, reduce your adjective clauses before you submit your writing.